Hello everybody and welcome to another episode. In today's episode I am going to show you how to replace the timing belt on any engine with the size 1.6 or 2.0 TDI. So today I'm working on this Volkswagen Passat B6 from the year 2010 and it has the engine 2.0 TDI CommonRail. The parts which I'm going to install on the car are made by Contitech, so the new belt, the hardware and all the screws are made by Contitech, by Continental, and the water pump it's made by HOWTODO. I recommend all to buy from those manufacturers because I always installed from this manufacturer and I didn't have any problems for now. So in my opinion they are the best to the quality and over the price, so I recommend all to try and install those parts on your car. So as you can see, right here I have all the new parts which I'm going to install on the car. I have the new guidance rolls, I have the bolts, I have the screws, I have the tensioner, I have the belt, and I also have the water pump. So on this car you have to replace all of these parts if you want to do a good job and if you want to make sure that the car will not longer have any problems in the future regarding to the timing belt. The timing belts on this car must be replaced at every 60,000 kilometers or from 5 to 5 years. So for example, on this car I replaced the timing belt in the year 2021, but because the owner made a lot of kilometers with the car, he already drove 62,000 kilometers over with the timing belt mounted on the car. So from right here it's time for me to install a new timing belt and the new hardware back on the vehicle, because in this way he will not have any problems in the future and he is not risking to break anything or destroy the engine if the timing belt is failing. So what I recommend all to do is to replace the timing belt at every 60,000 km maximum. So on this car I recommend all to follow my advice. You have to remove all of these parts. You don't have to remove any hose. You don't have to disconnect any hose on this engine. I will show you guys a proper way to replace and to put away all of these hoses. So as you can see, this is the last time when I did the timing belt on this car. So from here I recommend all to lift the car up. You'll have to put some jack stands underneath the front side of the vehicle, and then you'll need another jack stand which will support the engine from underneath. You'll have to take a big set of wood, a big plate of wood, and you'll have to put it underneath the oil pan. And in this way you'll support the engine, because you'll have to disconnect the mounting support from the engine and you don't want to let the engine fall onto the ground. So you'll have to support it with a jack stand like I'm doing right here. After that, to begin, what you'll have to do is to remove the serpentine belt. To remove the serpentine belt, you'll have to use a 17mm socket to undo or to release the tensioner, and in this way you will have access to the serpentine belt and you'll be able to remove it completely from the engine. As you can see, this is what I'm doing. I'm using my key, I'm pushing the tensioner back, and in this way the serpentine belt is releasing and it's able to come out from the engine. When you're trying to remove the serpentine belt, you could also use a metal part or a nail to block the serpentine belt tensioner from moving around, and it will stay stuck in one position until you remove the metal nail. So just look what I did right here. It's blocked, it's permanently moved like this, and in this way I'm able to work on the car easily without having the need to push the serpentine belt tensioner in any way. And also in this position it's a very good idea to check all the pulleys from the alternator or from the AC compressor and check and see if everything is working perfectly, and if not you'll have to replace it right now. After that, what you have to do is to remove all the parts from the top of the engine. You'll have to remove the antifreeze reservoir, you'll have to remove the fuel filter reservoir and also all the hoses from around it, and you'll have to remove also the auxiliary fuel pump. But all of these things are very easy to be removed. I'm assuming that if you are doing a big job like this, you already know how to remove all of these things. You already have some knowledge about the cars, and I don't have to explain it everything and how to do it. Because if you don't know how to do the normal things on the cars, I recommend all to not try to do a job like this, because it's a very risky job, and if you mess something up, if you broke a bolt, or if you over tight the tensioner, or if you under tight the tensioner, or if you don't mount something correctly, the engine can be destroyed, the engine can break. So I recommend all to not start a job like this if you don't know what you're doing. So this video is only for the advanced ones, let's say like this. This video is for the people who already know how to do some basic stuff on the cars, and with this video I'm trying to help everybody, and I'm trying to show you how to do a proper job and how to do a timing belt on any 1.6 or 2.0 TDI CommonRail engine. From here, just follow what I'm doing. You'll have to remove all of these screws. I'm not going to explain everything, but you can see in the video what I'm doing right here, and from here just follow my steps. As you can see, in this moment I removed all the parts which are mounted over the top of the engine in this side where the timing belt is mounted. And as you can see, I didn't disconnect it any hose, so everything is mounted and everything is working as it should work. I only moved them a little bit to the side, and from right here in this moment I have enough space and room to work with. I'm able to remove the timing belt cover, I'm able to remove the engine mounting support and all the other brackets which you'll have to disconnect. And as you can see, to remove the timing belt cover, you'll have to remove all of these clips. You'll have 3 clips over this plastic part, and after that you'll have to remove it and put it away. After you remove this plastic, this cover from the timing belt, this is how the timing belt is looking on this kind of engines. So if you have an engine with the size 1.6 or 2.0 TDI, this is also how yours will look. From here, what you'll have to do next is to remove the 4 big screws which are securing the engine to the engine mounting support. And after that, you'll have one smaller screw which is securing the engine mounting support to the chassis of the car, right here in the left side. After that, you'll have to use the jackstand from underneath the oil pan, from underneath the engine, and you'll have to work with the jackstand, and you'll have to work with the tool. So you'll have to lift the engine a little bit, then you'll have to remove the screws, then you'll have to lower the engine a little bit, then you'll also have to remove some other screws which are securing the bracket from the engine mounting support to the engine, and so on. After you remove the engine mounting support, you'll have to put it away, and then you'll have another bracket which is connected to the engine mounting support, and you'll have 3 screws which you'll have to remove. So to reach those 3 screws, you'll have to lift the engine a little bit up, you'll have to lift it up, and only after that you'll have access to the bolts. And after that you'll have one more bolt underneath the engine, so the bolt is right at the bottom of the bracket, and you'll have to lower the engine a little bit more to release the bolt and to remove the bracket completely from the engine. This is the engine bracket which I was talking about. This is how it's looking, and you have 3 big screws which are securing it mounted to the car. I recommend all to let the screws in the hole, because in this way you will not misunderstand, you will not put the screws in the wrong hole, so you will not have any problems with the mounting back on the car. After that, the next step which you have to do is to remove the pulley from the crankshaft. And to remove the pulley from the crankshaft, you'll have to use a special tool. You'll have to remove the 4 bolts which are securing it mounted to the car, and you'll have to follow the little bolt, and you'll have to follow the little way and how it's installed on the car, and you'll have to install it after you finish the job in the same way. To completely remove the pulley from the crankshaft, you'll have to pull it to the exterior, and eventually it will come out from its place. After that, after you remove the pulley from the crankshaft, you'll have to remove those 2 big metal plates which are covering the timing belt. You'll have to detension the tensioner from the serpentine belt, because otherwise you won't have access to the bolt which is underneath. And after that, you can go ahead and remove the rest of the parts from the timing belt. Okay everybody, so now that you all saw how to reach the timing belt, now it's time for us to remove the timing belt completely out from the engine. So to remove the timing belt, what I recommend you to do, and what you have to do, because if you don't do it, you won't be able to replace the timing belt on the car. You'll have to buy a set of tools, a set of locking tools, because you'll have to lock the timing belt, you have to lock the engine before removing the timing belts. So the ones which you need for this kind of car, this is the first one, this is the most important one. This will block the crankshaft from not moving around, and this is also how yours should look. You'll have to turn the crankshaft until you will see the little arrow. You'll see a little arrow right here mounted on the teeth. So I hope you all can see it. It's right here at the bottom, for example, in my case. This line from over the top of the hole. You'll have to put that line at the top, and after that you'll have to put all of these locking tools. One you'll have to put it right here to the fuel pump, and one right here into the camshaft. So you'll have to turn the engine to the TDC, so this is the top dead center, which you'll have to follow. And after that you'll have to see that everything will align up, and you'll have to put these locking tools into the holes, because otherwise if you don't put them, the engine will not be locked and you won't be able to do the job, because the engine will turn and you will probably break something inside the engine. So you'll have to put the engine into the TDC, so the top dead center. This is what you have to follow, and as you can see, this is how everything is looking mounted on this engine. I already turned the engine. You'll have to follow these steps, and you'll have to do it in the exact same way on this engine. So I hope you all can see it right here. The fuel pump is locked, the camshaft is locked, and right here also the crankshaft is also locked. So as you can see, this is how it's looking. You'll have to put the arrows to face one and each other. And after that, you can go ahead and remove the little 3 screws which are securing the camshaft pulley mounted to the engine. You have to remove them just a little bit, and after that you can also remove the 3 little screws which are securing the pulley from the fuel pump, and then you'll have to remove the tensioner, and you'll have to remove the belt completely out from the engine. Just follow what I'm doing right here, just follow how I'm doing it. Normally there are a lot of ways to do this job, but in my case I'm doing it like this, because this is how I like to do it, and this is how I think it's a very good idea to do it. As you can see, you'll have to remove a little bit of the bolt from the tensioner, and then you'll have to use an Allen key and turn anti-clockwise the tensioner from the belt, and the belt will become loose, and eventually you will be able to remove it. Even if you remove the tensioner, normally the belt, because it's so tight, because it's fitted perfectly, the belt, it will be a little bit difficult to remove it, but eventually you will be able to remove it and you will be able to do the job properly. Just follow what I'm doing. After you release the tension from the tensioner, you'll have to remove a little bit the 3 screws from the pulley of the camshaft, and after that you will also to remove the 3 screws which are securing the pulley of the fuel pump. But you don't have to remove them completely. Only if you replace the bolts you'll have to remove them completely. If not, you will only have to lose them up a little bit, just to make sure that the pulley is sliding back and forth very easily. So as you can see, the timing belt is coming out very easy from this engine. This is how it's looking, and also the timing belt which I installed on the car previously was made by Continental, and also all the parts which I'm going to install today are the exact same manufacturer. So even the water pump is made by HOWTODO, because I only work with this manufacturer, like I told you at the beginning of this video. So this is why I recommend you all to do and to go with this manufacturer, because it's a very good manufacturer and I didn't have any problems with the parts. So as you can see, the timing belt is removed from the engine, the camshaft pulley it's sliding back and forth very easily, and you will also have to slide the pulley from the fuel pump very easy back and forth, and if not, you'll have to lose up the bolt a little bit more. Okay everybody, so the next step which you'll have to do is to remove all the guidance pulley from the engine. You'll have two smaller ones and you'll have the big one. After you remove the guidance pulley from the engine, you'll have to remove the bolts which are holding the tensioner from the belt and also which is holding the pulley from the bottom mounted to the engine. So in my case, I'm always replacing the bolt which is going into the engine at the top part, into the engine block. So as you can see, in my case, this one, it's already loosed up, so this is not good thing. As you can see, it's moving very easy, up and down. So this was already a little bit loose because of the mileage. Just look how everything is moving. So in my case, I catched this timing belt in the perfect time. So this is perfectly because I'm going to replace it anyway. I'm going to install a new one back on the engine. So this was almost a very big risk. If I didn't have to replace the timing belt, this could also be a problem in the future. So this is why I recommend you all to do this job. This is why I recommend you all to check all the parts. This is why I recommend you to replace all the parts and all the bolts. So in my case, I'm going to replace the top bolt. The bottom bolt, I'm not going to replace it this time because I didn't bought it in the kit. So in my case, the bottom bolt, it's holding in very good, and the top bolt must be replaced as soon as possible. After that, you'll have to remove the water pump. You'll have to remove the 3 screws which are securing the water pump mounted to the engine. And as you can see right here, those are all the tensioner and the guidance pulley from the old timing belt. And as you can see right here, those are all the new parts which I'm going to install on the car. Right now, what I'm going to do is to replace the bolt from the top part of the engine. So you'll have to do the same. You'll have to replace the bolt, and I recommend all to not tighten it very hard because in some cases you can strip the threads, and if you strip the threads from the engine on this side, you'll have a very big problem. So just take that in mind. If you don't feel comfortable with doing this, I recommend all to not do it. So what I'm going to do right here, I'm going to put one nut over the bolt, and after that I'm going to put another nut, and I will have to tie them together because in this way I will have something to catch on, and I will be able to remove the bolt from the engine. And I will have to do the exact same thing with the installation of the new one. Okay everybody, so right now I'm done with installing the new bolt into the engine. So just remember, you don't have to over tight it, don't tight it too much, because if you screw the threads you'll have a very big problem with the engine. So as you can see, in my case everything is secured, everything is looking perfectly, and right now what I'm going to do is to remove the water pump and to catch all the coolant which is going to come out from the engine. From here, just follow what I'm doing, because it will take me a little bit to clean everything and to install everything back on the car. So just watch and learn what I'm doing right here. As you can see, this is the old water pump which I removed from the engine and which I installed on the car 3 years ago, almost 4 years. And I also installed it with some silicone over the o-ring, and eventually I learned that it's not good to put silicone in some cases, because if you put too much, it will go inside the engine and it will create you some problems with the car. So I recommend all to not put silicone over the new water pump, just to learn from my mistakes. Don't put silicone over the new water pump because it's not recommended, and it's a very bad idea to put silicone, because in some cases if you put too much, like I said earlier, it can go inside the engine and it can block some pipes and you'll have some problems with the engine. So just put the water pump with the o-ring which is coming from the manufacturer, and that's it. Some people like to put some silicone over the o-rings, some people don't like it, so feel free to do it in your way and how you think that is good for your car. In my opinion, I don't recommend you to put it, but if you want to put it, you can go ahead. Right now, as you can see, before installing the parts back on the engine, I recommend you all to take some brake cleaner and clean the area very good. You have to clean everything from the timing belt very good. You have to use some compressed air to push all the dirt out, and after that you can go ahead and install the rest of the parts back on the engine. You'll have to install the water pump, you'll have to tie it to 50 Newton meters, you'll have to tie the bolts to 50 Newton meters, and after that you can go ahead and install the rest of the parts following my advice from this video. After you are done with tightening the water pump to 50 Nm, you'll have to install the big guidance rod, and after that you'll have to put the belt over the engine. So these big guidance rods on these cars must be tied to 50 Nm and 90 degrees. Okay everybody, so as you can see, I installed the water pump, I installed the big guidance rod, and now I can go ahead and install the timing belt over the engine. Always you'll have to install it from the bottom, you'll have to secure it at the bottom, make sure everything is aligned and fitted perfectly into the teeth from the crankshaft, and after that you have to pull it very hard from the right side, and with the left side you'll have to hold it from not moving around. You'll have to pull it very hard from the right side over the water pump, and after that over the big guidance rod, and then you'll have to put it over the fuel pump. And to install it over the fuel pump, make sure the pulley from the fuel pump it's fitted into the middle of the screws. So the screws which are securing the pulley from the fuel pump must be in the middle of the holes. You'll see some holes at each screw, and you have to put it in the middle, because after that when you're going to tension, you'll have to make sure that the tension will pull it to the left or right depending, and it will have space to move just a little bit. To properly install the belt and the tensioner back on the engine, you'll have to check for the tensioner, because this kind of tensioner have a metal bracket at the bottom and behind it, which is going to fit inside the engine. So the engine have a hole inside it, which it's made for the bracket from the tensioner. So if I'm saying it correctly, you'll have to check for the tensioner to fit the bracket from behind the tensioner into the hole of the engine, because if you don't do this, the tensioner will not be blocked and it will move around, and this is not good. You won't be able to align everything and you won't be able to install it back on the car. So just take that in mind. You'll have to align the tensioner, you'll have to put it into the hole from the engine, and after that you can go ahead and install the belt over the engine like I'm doing right here. Also, make sure that the camshaft from the pulley and also from the fuel pump, it's in the middle of the screws. So the screws which are securing the camshaft mounted to the engine are right in the middle of the hole, because each screw has a bigger hole around it and the screw must be in the middle of the hole. So this is the correct way, because if you don't put it like this, you won't be able to tension the belt and you won't be able to install it correctly on the car, and probably you will break some things. So just follow what I'm doing. As you can see, this is how everything is installed. This is how the screws are looking, and as you can see, the hole from around the screw can be seen. So this is meaning that the pulley is mounted right in the middle of the hole, right in the middle of the bolt. I'm not sure exactly how to explain it to you, but you'll have to check it and you'll have to see if it's right like this. And as you can see, the tensioner, this is the bracket which I talked about. This is the bracket from around it, from behind it, and there is the hole from the engine. You'll have to put this bracket into the hole, because if you don't put it, you won't be able to install the parts back on the engine. Also, as you can see, this is how the belt is looking at the bottom of the crankshaft pulley. And from here, what I will have to do is to put the guidance rods from the top and also from the bottom. I'll have to tighten everything to spec, and then I'll have to tighten the timing belt and I'll have to tension it, and after that I'll have to tighten the 3 bolts from each pulley, from the camshaft and also from the fuel pump, and after that you'll have to turn the engine 2 times, 2 or more times, but it's recommended to turn it 2 times because it's enough just to check if everything was aligned perfectly and to check if everything is working perfectly. And after that you'll have to check it one more time, you'll have to adjust it if it's needed, and after that you can go ahead and assemble everything back together as it was before on the car, and you'll have to start the engine to check if everything is working good or not. Also, don't forget to tighten the 2 guidance rods from the top and from the bottom, the 2 ones which are smaller, to 20 Newton meters each. Right now, as you can see, the next step which you have to do is to check one more time the tensioner, and you'll have to tension the belt from this engine. And to tension the belt, what you have to do is to put the bolt back, and you have to screw it a little bit, and with the Allen key you'll have to turn the little arrow from the tensioner. You'll have to turn it until it will fit perfectly into the hole from the corner. So just look at the arrow. You'll have to fit it perfectly right in the hole from the corner, and when it's perfectly fitted inside it, you'll have to tighten the bolt, and in this way the tensioner will be tight and it will remain like this. If you, for example, over tight it, if you put the arrow a little bit too much to the right or too less to the left, for example, you'll have to remove the bolt, and you'll have to tension it one more time, because you can tension it how many times you want until you will tension it correctly. After that, what you'll have to do is to tighten the pulley from the camshaft and also the pulley from the fuel pump, and then you'll have to turn the engine 2 times, and then you'll have to fit the locking pins back into the hole. So you'll have to put the engine one more time to the TDC, to the top dead center, and if everything is perfectly, if all the locking pins are going into the holes perfectly, this is meaning that you don't have to adjust anything. This is meaning that you can go ahead and tighten the rest of the parts to spec. And for example, the tensioner, you'll have to tighten it to 20 Newton meters and 45 degrees. Just remember, when you're going to turn the engine, you'll have to turn the engine 2 times from the crankshaft, from the bottom pulley, and 1 time from the camshaft from the top. So just remember, when you're going to turn the engine 2 times at the bottom, the engine will be turned up 1 time at the top. So just take that in mind. So as you can see, right now the engine is perfectly turned up, and right here the engine is back into the TDC. So in my case, I didn't have to align everything. As you can see, the pulleys are all fitted perfectly, the locking pins are going into the hole perfectly, and as you can see, even the tensioner is fitted perfectly into the middle of the hole. But in my case, I like to detension it just a little bit and align it one more time, just to make sure that everything is good and everything is tightened to spec. And after that, you can go ahead and tighten everything to spec and install everything back together as it was before on the car. After that, you'll have to tighten the bolts from the camshaft pulley to 20 Nm and 45 degrees each. After that, the bolts which are securing the pulley from the fuel pump must be tightened to 20 Nm and 90 degrees. In this moment right here, I installed everything back on the car, I lined everything, so I also torqued everything to spec, so I don't have to worry about anything. And from here I will have to go ahead and install the rest of the parts from the engine. I will have to install all the little screws, all the parts, the mounting support and the rest of the pieces. So I tell you one more time, just check if everything is perfectly installed, just check one more time, just to make sure that you are good to go, and that's it. After install the engine mounting support back on the car, you'll have to tighten the crankshaft pulley, and you'll have to tighten the bolt to 10 Newton meters and 90 degrees. And also make sure you install it in the correct position, because you'll have a little hole on the pulley and you'll have to put it over the crankshaft in the correct position. Okay everybody, so I installed all the parts which are going to work with the car. So right now I will have to start the car for the first time. And as you can see, just here how the engine is working. Everything is working smoothly, everything is looking perfectly. So right here, just look at the tensioner. The tensioner is moving perfectly into the middle of the hole, so the tensioner is tensioned perfectly like I always like to be. And as you can see from right here, I have to go ahead, I will have to install all the parts back on the car, and I will come back to show you guys how everything is looking and how everything is working. In this moment, as you can see, everything is installed back on the engine like it's supposed to be installed. I only have to bleed the installation and fill the reservoir with coolant. And as you can see, the engine is running great, it's looking great. I even installed the speaker, which will show me the next time when I have to do the timing belt on this car. This is how to do a full replacement of the timing belt on any engine which is the size 1.6 or 2.0 TDI CommonRail engine. Thanks for watching. If you like this video and found it informative, please leave a like and a comment down below. See you next time.